Yo, Dave Loughran here, and we got a new podcast for you, appropriately named Loughy and Savoca, a fantasy football podcast.
Wow, we needed a name brand, several focus groups to get us all the way there. But every single Friday, you and I are taking that same analytical and debate energy that we brought to every single DFS slates over the last 2 seasons, and coming at you every Friday talking about the NFL, the changing landscape, and how it applies to fantasy football, best ball, and of course, DFS. We're going to be here all football season long. You can find us on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel and on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts today. It's going to be a great time.
Here, have a little taste. Do you agree with Tyreek Hill's ADP right now?
No. Sorry. I get why people in best ball drafts looking for the pure upside play are going for it. But if you're talking about your one home league, the one that you want that trophy behind you all season long with the bragging rights and everything that comes with it, nah, miss me with his ADP. I haven't seen enough from Tua Tagovailoa. It's that simple.
You know, one of the craziest things, and this is something I was looking at months ago, so I'm trying to pull it up again now just so I can get the numbers accurate here. We know that Tua Tagovailoa and really even the coaching, the play calling was designed not to throw the ball downfield, which was kind of crazy. But when you look last year at Tua, he had one of the lowest deep ball percentages. So 20 plus yards, throwing the ball 20 plus yards downfield. He threw it 20 plus yards downfield at one of the lowest clips in the league last year. But what's crazy is that he had one of the highest adjusted completion percentages on those throws. So my question is it there? And I know where you're going. You're saying, I just haven't seen it yet. And there's so many other good players that I don't really want to spend a second round pick or an early second round pick on Tyreek Hill. Get that entirely. But at the same time, I don't think it's impossible that the Tua actually isn't terrible when it comes to deep balls if they open it up. But now we need to get everything right. And it's scary to need to get 3 things right with all the stars aligning when you're drafting a guy that early.
That's really right. You know, we talked about the way that elite offenses and grabbing wide receivers from elite offenses gives you multiple outs. Now you need to jump through multiple hoops in order to be correct. Not to say that Tyreek Hill isn't one of the most efficient wide receivers with the ball in his hands or even on a per route basis in the league, but really is this is about everyone trying to recreate what happened between 2019 and 2020 in Buffalo, right? This is about when Stephon Diggs went and got paired with Josh Allen. They became best friends, and we saw a new superstar at both the quarterback and the wide receiver position emerge together. Now, I think you could say Tyreek Hill is a superstar, and if you want to bet on Tyreek and on Tua being that next duo to really go to the next level as a team and as an offense, that is not the craziest argument to me at all.
Tasted good, huh? Come hang out with us every Friday afternoon.
Loughy and Savoca, a fantasy football podcast. You'll find it on YouTube on the Stokastic Fantasy Football page every single Friday, and you can listen to it on audio form everywhere podcasts are today.
You hear what I said? Yep. Hey, Brody killed that thumbnail too.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
Yes. The thumbnail game is #different. Built different now.
Let's fucking rock. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. It feels good to be back. Welcome to the Stokastic. I still have to get used to that because I've done, I think, like 3 live shows since the name change.
Fair.
To the Stokastic first look NFL DFS show for week 1. We did this last year. It was an absolute blast, and this will have some shelf life, right? Not evergreen, but this will get us up through week 1, and Hopefully you guys enjoy this and are as excited for it as I am. I'm Dave Loughy at Loughy_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D, joined by Matt Savoca, co-host of Loughy and Savoca, that you can check out over on our fantasy football podcast. It's really fun every week. You're in the fantasy football. Hang with us every Friday. What's good, brother?
Hey, man. I'm so happy to be back on the Stokastic DFS channel. I don't think I've actually appeared on the channel since the NFL draft, where we did a live round one live stream. But, you know, it's been a joy this offseason because behind the scenes, we've been working really hard over at the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel, building out this show, building out a bunch of other great content. Please check us out over there if you're trying to win your home league, Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. But we're back in the saddle, and it feels right. The DK week one pricing is out, so we got to dig into it. I've already got values. I've already got top options that are great to play. Let's go, man. I'm ready.
Yo, Saint Steven just kicking this off in a big way. As you guys know, we do the matchup show every week, Thursday, 11 a.m. throughout the regular season. We have aptly dubbed it the marathon matchup show because it's a pretty long show. But if you only have one day to watch anything every week, a lot of people will just come around for that because they get all the goods they need. But St. Steve said, let's go. I packed some. Is pemmican? Is that how you say it?
I believe it's pemmican.
I looked it up. I didn't even know what it was. Do you know what it is?
I've heard of it. What is it? It's the drug, right?
I thought it was like a food. No?
What is it?
It's a tallow dried meat and sometimes dried berries.
Okay.
Yeah, he said I got pemmican and a flask of mead to sustain me through the show.
And you'll see, okay, so not only is it a long show, and we do want it to be, if you have just time for one show, as Loughy says, watch that one each week. But, you know, people have gotten into telling us the substances that they are partaking in order to get through said marathon. So thanks for starting us off strong, St. Steven. Welcome in the chat. Man, this feels good to be back. Feels real good.
It does. I'm 6 drinks in already.
You're that guy in that fantasy football channel video you were talking about that doesn't know where he is.
I'm good, but soon enough. Anyway, it's been a while, guys. James, what's up, man? All you got. Dropped Roses is in the chat. Oh my God, we're in business. All right, so week one, we're going to use DraftKings. There's no way we can do a coherent show by going over several sites, whatever sites have even released salaries yet. It might just be DraftKings. And really, I don't want to necessarily take a deep dive, Matt, because the amount of shit that can change from now till week one is astronomical. But it's just fun to look at these week one salaries, maybe even build a dummy lineup or two, see what you come up with. We'll go through quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, special teams, which we will obviously not spend much time on whatsoever, if at all. Let's kick it off with the quarterback position. Before we do, though, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and you know, let's have some fun. It helps us a ton, though, greatly. I want to get to 100. Yeah, I want to get to 100K by the end of the NFL season. It's a lofty goal, but I think it's doable. Anyway, quarterback. If there's one thing about quarterback for week one, feel free to disagree. The value sucks. And like, I don't know, I'm going to throw you a curveball out of the gate and we will get back on course. Is there anyone below Jalen Hurts that stands out to you?
Yes, there is. Hurts sitting here right now at 6,800. I think Matt Ryan could start off this season with the Indianapolis Colts with a bang, especially with this Houston Texans defense that I don't believe is going to be anything near average defensively. But honestly, this position, you know, you mentioned it right up top. The values are always different in week one because the pricing is just so soft. So there's no must plays in week one, the way I look at it. But as close as there is to a must play, Lamar Jackson is playing the Jets. Yeah. Should we just log out? Like, Chris, you want to just roll the credits? Like, do you want to just be done here?
Dude, it's super hard not to like Lamar Jackson there. Very, very hard not to have interest in Lamar Jackson. I thought the same thing. Actually, a number of mobile quarterbacks that just stand out to me for week one. And Jackson, I guess if you're just looking at all of this and saying, all right, 6-point favorites on the road, nice implied total. Philadelphia Eagles -4. Jalen Hurts doesn't particularly need to be good, but I think one of the reasons they brought AJ Brown in is because the guy is so dominant after the catch that Hurts doesn't always need to be trying to rip balls deep. But they said in camp that AJ Brown looks like a running back after the catch. So you have him, you have Devontae Smith, who should be back by week 1. You have a good pass catchers. You have a great offensive line. PFF has it ranked number 1. And then, like you said, the Ravens, their offensive line gets healthy again. Lamar Jackson is back. J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. You might say, how does that help him? Well, anytime the offense is good, it's going to help them. It's going to put them in scoring position more often. Those are two guys. Now, the only thing I have with Matt Ryan, because I don't even disagree with you that Matt Ryan, he was one guy I looked at, and then the other was Derek Carr, just in the sense of maybe this game shoots out, 52-point total, divisional rivals. He's got an arsenal now with Devontae Adams and Renfro, and you also have Darren Waller.
Right.
So I look at that and I go, if he's under-owned because this is a difficult perceived matchup, this could be a spot where I go, all right, I'll take some shots on a 5K or whatever he is, Derek Carr, 5,900, I think, and see what I can get out of that, because I could see this game being like a 38-35 game.
That's a great point. And this is something we've been taking advantage of over in the Best Ball streets. Follow us at the Stokastic Best Ball channel as well. We've got so much NFL coverage this year, but exactly, the AFC West, all of these divisional matchups have a shootout probability that we need to take advantage of every single week in DFS. These divisional matchups, which sometimes in a typical division in a typical year can sometimes turn into like these defensive slogs, especially later in the year. Not so in the AFC West. These offenses and quarterbacks are just awesome. Derek Carr at 5,900, he's kind of interesting to me. The Chargers defense, when fully healthy, I think is better than this, but this is the first time I mentioned this defensive stat I like to use. It's schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, and it's from last year.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, it's schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, or the long way of saying it is fantasy points allowed over opponent average to the position. You see why we shorten said things. But the bottom line, the Chargers were okay against quarterbacks last year. They've got playmakers in center field with Derwin James, and they certainly got a great pass rush as well. If that offensive line of Las Vegas isn't at average, I think they could have a real disadvantage there. I actually like another player in that same salary range, just another $100 more. What about Trey Lance against the Chicago Bears? That's more of a rushing upside instead of game environment upside, but I think if you're just looking at pure quarterback value in that price range, Trey Lance, just a little bit more, is really enticing.
And probably very low owned.
Right.
I don't see him being popular because, if he was coming in at like a Davis Mills price or something all the way down here, you go, yeah, I'll take some shots. But then once you get into the 6K range, you're competing with other guys that you could pay a little bit more for and make life a little bit easier. So I think he probably goes a bit overlooked. I don't mind Trey Lance because he has the rushing upside. I like Carr a little bit more because I think there's a real shootout potential there. If I'll say this, under 6K, or we can go 6K and lower, Derek Carr would be my top guy over Matt Ryan. And I totally understand why, anybody would look at Matt Ryan and say, okay, against Jacksonville, I like this. They're 8-point favorites on the road. Again, another high implied total against the bad Texans team. And I think Matt Ryan will be fine. I'm not looking at him as washed. His weapons were depleted last season. He had a horrible offensive line. They had the second worst run game in the league, all of that. But I do think this is still a team that wants to lean on the ground. And also the game flow here is one where if you get up early on a bunch of rushing touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor, then you sit back and chill. So I just think the game environment between Las Vegas and the Chargers has a little bit more upside in terms of being 4 full throttle quarters than this one. But Ryan could go off for 4 touchdowns. It's probably going to be on like 220 yards though.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing game environment scores, like expectation that it might go over its Vegas total, there are 2 games that are going to stick out on this slate far and away more than any other, right? It's this Chargers-Raiders game, and it's the fact that we got the Cardinals and the Chiefs playing as well. So game environment, there are 2 that are above the others. Absolutely. I think the other part with Matt Ryan and his pass catchers is that they're going to be very, very interesting for tournaments because of the way you just outlined that game environment. People are going to love Jonathan Taylor. For cash games, like, are you kidding me? I get Christian McCaffrey's here, but like the easiest narrative for this game, Colts versus Texans, is that Taylor just dominates from the start, like we're drafting him to do in season-long leagues. The alternative way that they dominate is Matt Ryan just does his thing through the air. Michael Pittman gets a score. Maybe Naheem Hines gets involved. Paris Campbell or Alec Pierce get involved. And so in that regard, I think maybe instead of looking at him as a value cash play, it's more advantageous to value Matt Ryan as a tournament option because of what you're going against from the rest of the field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I get that. And we will talk about Jonathan Taylor in just a minute too when we talk running backs. But how do you want to approach this Kansas City Arizona game? Because that's one to me that, as you mentioned, if there's two games you think could fly over the totals, it's Vegas Chargers and then it's this one. Mahomes is the highest priced quarterback on the slate, marginally more expensive than guys like Jackson and Herbert. And then Kyler Murray's down there also in, we'll call the elite tier, the 7K and up guys.
Sure.
That's headlined by a bunch of really strong players and a bunch of rushing upside. How do you want to target this one?
It's kind of funny because what the top stacks tool on Stokastic.com is going to look like for this game, right? Kelsey is such a reasonable salary as well. We'll get there once we talk tight ends. This is probably a week where you just kind of fit in Kelsey, Mahomes, even on DraftKings, and you can figure it out from there. You're certainly going to have to make sacrifices, particularly at the top tier of the running back position. But the bottom line is, in no way is Patrick Mahomes too expensive at 7,700. Is he a super strong value? Is he a must play? Absolutely not. But we're already seeing in chat, just get Mahomes, a stack in there, maybe Juju, MVS, a bring back with Rondale. Like, sometimes DFS doesn't have to be hard, right? Especially when pricing is soft in week one. Just look at the game. We've said it like 8 times already. The game environment, the expectations from a Vegas total standpoint, and the fact that Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes were two of the most efficient and voluminous quarterbacks in the NFL last year. And you just go, okay, let's tack on some positive correlation options and then some value plays. We're done here with the lineup.
Well, see, this is where it gets crazy because you have Travis Kelce, who, he's 6,600, right? He's actually not even the most expensive tight end. But then let's assume that Patrick Mahomes still has the innate ability to rack up 5 touchdowns in a game, no matter who he's throwing the ball to, despite Tyreek Hill being in Miami now. Well, you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who, say what you want about this guy, you don't pay him $30+ million not to be used. And
exactly,
if I had to guess, look, nobody's going to fill the void that Tyreek Hill leaves behind. Okay. Ton of targets vacated though. And you're bringing him in to at least try to fill some of the deep threat void. Don't look at him as Tyreek Hill. You can't use him as a proxy to Tyreek Hill, but you can say they want this guy running. He's a very good deep ball receiver. We've seen that in his time with Green Bay. You have him at 4,700. You have Juju at 5,200. You have Sky Moore at 3,800. Let's just assume you want to take some shots there. This is going to be the cheapest it's ever been to stack the Kansas City Chiefs.
Same as in season-long fantasy football this year too, right? The wide receivers, besides obviously the top option in Kelsey there, have been so cheap all draft season long. I'm seeing the exact same thing. If you haven't been playing DFS for a while and you don't remember the archetype that Deshaun Jackson essentially invented, he was always a tough player for season-long leagues where you had to start players. But when you're talking about spike weeks, the ability to score 30 points because of that game environment again, and the quarterback they play with and the type of targets they receive, MVS fills that void perfectly, fills that archetype exactly the same way. Last year in Green Bay, 17.5 average depth of target, 17.5 yards was the highest for any wide receiver. His yards per target was insane because of that. And so obviously when you're getting thrown too deep, you naturally have a lower catch rate. But when he does catch those passes, they're incredibly huge gains. So playing with Mahomes in an environment where they'll probably need to score a lot of points, that's my top option, especially at that sub price. I mean, besides Kelsey, like Kelsey could just have 12 catches, 2 touchdowns here. Arizona has been better in the last few years against the tight end, but they actually have struggled against that position in particular over the last few years.
And another thing too, Courier, is that how you pronounce your name? I don't know. You can correct me in chat. Said, don't they still have Hardman? Why are people sleeping on him and going the straight like MVS like he's that much better? Now, Hardman has not produced in the as a second round pick in the few years that he's been in the league, but I remember seeing something yesterday, and I just pulled it up. I just found it. Patrick Mahomes said when asked about these receivers, we had a great camp. Juju's done a great job, made a lot of big plays. Marquez has made a lot of big plays. And I think McCall, talking about Hardman, has taken the step to fill the spot that Tyreek did on those deep routes. He's accepted that challenge and we'll have everybody kind of developing and doing different types of stuff, but he's about to be a big part of the offense and I'm excited for him. So yeah, exactly. Another one right there. And Hardman at $4,600. It's going to be tough to figure out who it's going to be each week, but if you get that right, you're in business. All right.
Talk about a perfect situation too, as we start to figure this out. You'll hear us harp on it on every single show on the Stokastic DFS channel. Contest selection is so important here, right? Because then if you take a 3-entry tournament and you start to mix and match different stacks around Mahomes and you're right on one of them, you just have the same core players in all 3 of those lineups, and you could be looking at a huge win right there.
No doubt. Talk running backs. Hit that thumbs up too. You haven't done so yet. Only takes a second. And if you've forgotten, you know the drill. Atone for those sins, my friends. All right, running back. Is there a better play than the price agnostic? Is there a better play than Jonathan Taylor at the position this week? Or sorry,
No.
week 1?
Yeah, week 1, not really. Like Jonathan Taylor is about to get a gigantic workload. Obviously, 9,100 feels like not a great price, but in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, Houston was atrocious against the running back position, in part because they got gashed so many times against Jonathan Taylor. They were 30th of 32 teams. You got McCaffrey on the slate against Cleveland, who was below average in that same defensive metric. So in terms of guaranteed touches, those 2 are in the tier above. The rest of the players, even though there are some decent options, they fall into the everyone else tier. So if you're talking cash games, you're talking one lineup and you just need that guaranteed production, it's Taylor, McCaffrey, and absolutely everyone else.
I really am not in love with some of these 5K range players. And we're going to talk extensively about that because maybe you can put me on to a few guys that I'm not seeing or identifying the value there. But at the top, you can always make an argument for anyone, and we don't have ownership, right? So let's just say that Jonathan Taylor is considerably, exponentially higher owned than, Derrick Henry, who has a home matchup against the New York Giants, right? Let's just, they're touchdown favorites at home against the Giants, positive game script there. If he's way higher owned than Henry, and I think that's possible, then I will happily get to plenty of Derrick Henry. Or if Christian McCaffrey is going overlooked, remember, Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, was a $10,000 running back, $10,000 on DraftKings for many weeks a couple of seasons ago. So I don't know, Matt. I just always find this to be maybe the most fascinating spot and top tier of wide receiver, because these guys are all so good that if a bad matchup or a perceived bad matchup is going to suppress ownership to the point where they're being completely overlooked, then I'm going to want pieces of that every single week.
Yeah. And, obviously you said it, ownership really, really matters. When we project the ownership, we can see if pivoting to a slightly lower salary, lower probability option would make sense here. And if there is a huge discrepancy between a Taylor and a McCaffrey, or between a Taylor, McCaffrey, and a Derrick Henry, that is going to easily sway my decision, because the Giants were not good against the rush. And we know Tennessee would be happy to use Derrick Henry on 30 opportunities a game if it's in the game script for them. You've also got some other dark horse options here. Nick Chubb is another player like Derrick Henry who's always going to project out as like the 10th to 12th running back. He gets there with multiple scores, which are hard to project. But he did that against Carolina at just 6,500. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. There's just so much here in this, I would say 65 to 8K range and above, that I don't know if you need to mess around in that 5 to 6 range you were talking about. That's not how I'm going to start out building my lineups, at least.
Does Kevin Stefanski fuck with Kareem Hunt and he's like, hey, buddy, you're getting limited work because you want to trade and you don't want to be here.
And they liked Ernest Johnson.
Yeah, Ernest Johnson was good in those games where he was that one game he had 100+ yards, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I want to be clear, I'm not suddenly thinking that that I'm not going down narrative street and saying like now Nick Chubb is getting 5 targets a game. This is about touchdown upside, and that's how you win in DFS when your players score more touchdowns than expected. Against Carolina, below average in this same schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed metric last season, at a reduced price, saving you nearly or over $2,500 in salary at the running back position compared to a player like Jonathan Taylor. Those are the type of options I want to take chances on in small field tournaments, especially, even though the probability of being that number 1 overall player is a little bit lower.
All right. So you, in season long, in best ball, you love Saquon Barkley. Okay. Well, Saquon Barkley is $6,100 now for week 1 on the road in Tennessee. Is that a spot that you're going to be leaning heavily on then?
No, I'm not going to be leaning heavily on, but I will absolutely have some.
Oh, man. Some. I feel like the love for Barkley of 6,100, Matt, that's pretty cheap. He's cheaper than Alexander Madison.
If he scored 25 fantasy points, took like one of these a swing pass to the house and looked back, he is going to be so much more in salary in 1 to 2 weeks after week 1. It's going to be hilarious. So I do think that week is coming on the road against Tennessee, who was top 5 against the running back position last year. That would be cool, man. Just it would make my best ball teams very, very happy to start the season. But I can't tell you that is the absolute best play. It's certainly a top 10 play though at the running back position.
What about Najee Harris being $6,400?
That's the one that's more intriguing in that price range for me.
I mean, the volume is just going to be there. I think the salary is inexplicably low, and I know it's not a good matchup. It's a divisional game against Cincinnati, probably a low scoring game. I haven't looked at the total. If I had to guess, it's probably like 41.5, 44.5. Okay. So it is a little bit higher than I thought. I don't know. Quarterbacking probably going to be an issue all season long, but at the same time, 6,400 for a volume whore like Najee Harris seems a little low.
This is where this might be my leak, because I spent so much time in the best ball and fantasy football streets where volume and projecting out what these players are going to do on a weekly basis is just so important for projections over there. And the volume does look so good for a player like Najee Harris, but the teams that win big money on Sunday afternoon are the ones where they score a lot of touchdowns. And really, how many games, if you simulated Najee Harris's game against Cincinnati on the road, how many times does he have 102 touchdowns? Aaron Jones against Minnesota, who's 23rd against the running back position at 6,700. It almost feels like if you're looking for number 1 overall running back upside, that might actually be better for this, a very similar salary. Ryan said it in the chat too. Aaron Jones averaging 26 fantasy points per game with Adams off the field. You laid it out how that's because of a couple spike games and a couple of okay games. But what if it is a spike game to start on the road against the Vikings?
Could be. I have my reservations about Aaron Jones, but I get it. I get it. And I think, this type of like uncertainty is going to breed opportunity for sure. My only thing is, and that I have a different opinion on this than a lot of people.
I was just looking at it. You're going to pivot right away to 5,300 AJ Dillon the minute I say that.
So I just think Aaron Jones is fine. 6,700, right? I expect elevated pass catching work for sure. I do think people are overestimating how much of that is going to just go straight to Aaron Jones. Cause it's not like AJ Dillon wasn't actually involved as a pass catcher last year either. He caught 34 of 37 targets. He had 1 drop on the season. He averaged 9.2 yards per reception. Like he actually, he had a 50-yard reception at one point in the season, 2 receiving touchdowns. He's actually not as bad. Everybody, he came in the league, like, this guy can't catch. Well, shit. He's actually, yeah, he can. He's actually not that bad as a pass catcher. And he averaged more yards per route run than Aaron Rodgers or Aaron Jones last year. Actually,
I hope he averaged more than Aaron Rodgers.
That too, yeah. And more than Austin Eckler. But obviously, the sample size there can be a bit misleading. All I'm saying is, if you think that Aaron Jones is going to get more pass catching work, why wouldn't Dylan also get more pass catching work?
I think it's a great point. They could be the first and second best skill players on the entire roster. So if you're Green Bay and you're a rational coach, you just find ways to get them the ball. Even if you have Aaron Rodgers and you let Aaron Rodgers take his shots, but you just get them opportunities. We saw San Francisco take this matter into their own hands with Deebo Samuel, unlike any other team, just saying, get in the backfield. We'll get you the touches.
Yeah, just get him the ball.
We saw Kickstart talking about Cordero Patterson. When the Atlanta Falcons offense was completely floundering, they said, just get in the backfield, Cordero Patterson. We'll get you the ball. I think we might see some gadget options, some snaps with both of them on the field. The bottom line is, we talk about range of outcomes all the time. They're both good plays against the Vikings.
Speaking of $5,300 AJ Dillon, and yes, I think he's fine. I don't love him, not enamored with him here, but there is a fella $100 more expensive than AJ Dillon that goes by the name of Miles Sanders. Miles oft injured 0 touchdown Sanders for 2021. He's facing the Detroit Lions. He's the all this nonsense at camp. I don't buy into at all. By the way, last year they were saying the same thing, and
that they're going to trade for a running back.
What?
That they were going to trade
that,
for a
but then
back?
Also that like Kenny Gainwell was also getting first team snaps, and basically Nick Sirianni goes, "What are you talking about? Sanders is our guy. Like, that's just the way we run practices." And yeah, it's coach speak, but Sanders, and from all the reports out of camp, Sanders has been by far the best running back, like explosive, bigger. Let's not forget that he's, this is somebody, and look, you don't like Miles, not you personally, but you don't like Miles Sanders. I don't blame you at all. This guy has burned us more than anybody. But I stand by, the thing is I can't get away from is I just kind of stand by the analysis of it all. Good offensive line, favorites on the road. He is talented. He averages over 5 yards per carry for his career, 5.5 per carry last year, 5.3 this year, the year before. Like, there's so much upside there. It bites me in the ass every time. So if you're going, Loughy, stop it. Just enough about Miles Sanders. I got you. But he's 5,400 against the Detroit Lions. And last year when the Philadelphia Eagles played them, they ran the ball 43 times.
Yeah, it's our third season breaking down these slates. And sometimes at this point, you just toss it up to me like soft toss, because this is my opportunity to mention my other favorite statistic, expected fantasy points. Expected fantasy points is just opportunity. It's volume, right? It's rushes, targets, air yards, goal line opportunities, where you got the ball on the field, the accuracy of that target rolled up into a scale that's understandable, right? Because everyone's always talking in the industry about, they're going to regress. They're not going to see how many touches this way or value touches. It gets very complicated very fast. Miles Sanders, as you would expect, underperformed his expectation by about 2 DraftKings points per week. So the two assumptions we can make, possible conclusions we can make is, 1, he's bad. He's just not a good running back. Or he's unlucky. And how do we figure that out? Well, there is some randomness involved, but we look at the other advanced metrics, and you already started bringing it up. 5.6 yards per touch. He's evading 20% of his would-be tacklers. His true yards per carry is 3rd best in the NFL. So now you can start to really make an argument to say, maybe this dude is just unlucky, and maybe he will regress to some sort of mean by getting 3 touchdowns early on against a really terrible defense like the Detroit Lions. Now, they add a big playmaker in Detroit in Aiden Hutchinson, the 2nd overall pick. They could absolutely be better. We see really bad teams regress positively to the mean. But this makes sense. You want to tell yourself the story of that 3 touchdown running back no one saw coming at 5,100? It makes sense. I can't say no.
I think they will be better for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit wins this game outright, but uh, it's I also expect Miles Sanders to get work. But yeah, you put that nicely. Now, is there any value here? This is where last year, if you remember when pricing came out, there were a lot of very suspiciously priced players, specifically rookies, that we assumed were going to get a lot of work, and they were just priced in the basement. I don't see as much of that this year. There is one guy though that looks maybe remotely interesting, but nobody that jumps off the page at me.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm not into rookie running backs week one, and the real reason because of that, unless it's a situation where like we heard an hour before kickoff, like, hey, Elijah Mitchell is gonna be a thing today against the Lions. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Those are situations where I'll definitely take a shot, but I don't feel that way this year, especially with pricing being so soft at the running back position and so many bell cows available to me.
Not to mention that was it last year or the year before? Either way, it used to be $3,000 was minimum salary for running backs. Now it's 4,000. So it just makes it where, like, if you're getting these guys, 4,500 for a player, that would have been 3,800 or 3,900 a year before, and you go, all right, that looks a little bit better. But I don't see. Is there anybody that stands out as a potential option here? Like anyone in tournaments?
I mean, I guess if you want Breece Hall as some sort of run back option.
And he's not even that cheap.
That's what I mean. We don't have James Cook here because he's not on the slate. I think we're kind of digging too deep here. I really do. I'm looking outside my top 25 running backs. I still don't have a rookie here.
Damn. All right.
There you go. Hey, I remember when the pricing came out for week one last year, I built a few lineups and I said the number one value running back is going to be Travis Etienne. That's how far back this pricing was. We played one preseason game. Unfortunately, the nature of the beast is that we don't know how this is going to shake out. So by the time we get to the actual week one, my tune may be very different.
The only I don't know. I like there was word that Tyler Algier could be the starter, but
it doesn't look good right now.
What?
It doesn't look good. Apparently, he got listed like 8th on a depth chart.
Yeah, on the depth chart, down and buried on the depth chart. Plus, it's against the Saints too. Like a good defensive team. My assumption is Atlanta's offense stinks this year, so. Yeah,
that's a player we actually need to talk about, right? Because if Alvin Kamara is playing and he just crushes the Falcons, who were just getting demolished on the ground at the end of last season.
Oh, dude, Kamara's 76. I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
he's gonna play. He's gonna play for sure, 100%.
You said it, Steven. Hey, what's up, buddy? Welcome back. Good to see you, man. But yeah, injuries are gonna shake this up. But yeah, assuming Kamara plays like he's going to, I mean. That might be the smash spot there. They were 27th, the Falcons, in rush defense last year. Just not good.
Damn, dude. That's a good point. Steven, yeah, there's going to be a lot of injuries that shake things up. No doubt about it. We saw it last year as well. But with Kamara, the hearing got pushed back to September 29. And
that's right. It's going to be next year.
He's playing. And the NFL said that they were going to, initiate their own investigation. But if what we've seen in the past is any indication, number one, it would be, I don't want to say unprecedented because I don't know, but it would seem strange for them to make a ruling on a suspension prior to any sentencing or prior to any verdict in his actual hearing. That would be strange. And even if they did, I can't imagine it would be before week one anyway. So yeah, $7,600 on Kamara seems very interesting.
I don't know if I've said this on a show, and this is my non-legal opinion on the whole matter, but I do want to say that people sometimes get up in arms about why is the league waiting? Why do they wait for this stuff? And the real answer is because people whose job it is to uncover evidence are much better at uncovering evidence than the NFL. Bottom line. And so they wait for the evidence to be uncovered, and then they make the ruling. Now, will they make a ruling different than the legal proceedings? They might. They've done so before. But they wait for the legal proceedings to play out for that reason.
No question. And yeah, if the NFL does happen to get their hands on the footage, the alleged footage of Kamara kicking a dude in the face, yeah, I mean, maybe.
Don't they have that footage actually?
What?
I think the footage is there. I think I've seen.
Do they have it already though? I wasn't sure if they.
They just don't have the circumstances.
I know there was like corroborating footage from.
Oh, okay.
The statements that were made about what Kamara did and the footage, but I don't. Or footage that corroborated the statement. But I don't know if the NFL. Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Yeah.
If they have it already,
we don't know. And that's the whole point. It's like at this point, this late in the preseason, I think the odds of him playing week 1 have skyrocketed to the point where now I'm making my decisions as if he's available, barring injury.
And here's the thing: it doesn't matter if he's not in. It's DFS. We'll figure it out. We need not speculate. Would you play just very quickly? Would you play Mark Ingram at 5,900 if Kamara is out against the Falcons?
If I'm playing 20 lineups, there is no way I'm leaving the weekend without one Mark Ingram lineup. Is he going to be a priority on this slate with soft pricing? No, he's probably not.
All right.
They're going to pass more with Olave, Jarvis, and Michael Thomas healthy. They gotta.
Yo, you guys still have. What do we have? What day? What is the actual start here? It's what's the date? It's the 11th.
Yeah, it's a literal month away.
So then the 8th is the first game, Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have a calendar month before DFS gets underway. But, well, there's preseason and everything too. I got a video coming out, every single game breakdown for every week of the preseason. We had a smash spot last week, Hall of Fame game, absolute smash spot. Las Vegas cruised. Not always going to be that easy. But for tomorrow's slate, for Saturday, for Friday, Sunday, all of that, we'll have videos over on the Odd Chopper channel. Check them out if you're into that betting thing. But you got a month, which means that you got to stay occupied somehow, right? And I would suggest the best way to do that is Underdog Fantasy, because they'll give you $100 first match deposit bonus up to when you sign up and deposit over there using the promo code Stokastic, Stokastic. That's all you have to do. Sign up, deposit, get your bonus, and use that promo code Stokastic, because you still have absurdly big prize pools. The Best Ball Mania 3, $25 entry, 10 million up top, and a little kicker here is that you could shit the bed entirely in the postseason, but if you're the highest scorer in the regular season, you still win $1 million. Or if you're playing lower stakes, $1 million puppy 3, $5 to enter. The Pup Cup, $5 to enter. 100. Some of the names, it's just I feel uncomfortable saying them. 100K in prizes. Forget about the names. The contests are awesome. It's if you want to do it on your phone, I know a lot of you guys do, and you watch these videos on your phone, just amazing. Just interface, everything. It's a super friendly experience for the user. Underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code Stokastic. And Chris tells me, even though this is okay, Alex is doing a live draft for the Pup Cup tonight. If you're watching this days or even weeks later, it's the 10th of August. So you can disregard that in the event that you're not watching on Wednesday, August 10th. Check it out though. Underdog Fantasy, 6 site, best ball out there. And you don't have to set lineups each week. You don't have to make trades. You don't have to do waiver wire moves. You just draft your team, which is the most fun thing to do. And then you cruise. All right. Wide receivers, Matt.
Let's roll, man. I realize we talked about 45 minutes about quarterbacks and running backs. We've been known to talk.
Yes, we are. It's all right. That's okay. That's okay. We have fun here. Devontae Adams is the most expensive wide receiver, followed by Justin Jefferson, Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase, and Keenan Allen, actually as the 5th highest priced guy and rounding out that 7K and up range. How do you attack it?
For a slate with so many values, the Charger stack is not one of them. Eckler's expensive, Allen's expensive, Herbert's expensive. I think Devontae Adams is in a spot where I would be nervous because he's got this changing team environment. He's also against a Chargers secondary, which tends to be very, very good against number one wideouts. They were number 3 in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed last year to wide receivers. But if he just got targeted 10 times right out of the gate, remember they did that to Darren Waller last year. In week 1, the Vegas Raiders gave him 19 targets.
And it went terribly.
It did not go great. Obviously, they want to change that offensive environment. They want to make it more spread out, but Davante Adams is going to get his. Honestly, these top tier wide receivers, if you're playing 3 to 5 lineups, is probably the area of the salary pool I'm sacrificing to get up to more certainty at the running back position. It's not until you get to that, say, 6,500 and below that I feel like we have great values. If I'm playing one of them, none of them are bad. I think Justin Jefferson, low-key, could have a huge game against the Green Bay Packers, particularly because even though the Packers have a great cornerback in Jair Alexander, I don't expect him to be shadowing Jefferson with the prowess of players like Thielen, a hopefully healthy Irv Smith, and KJ Osborne. Keep your eye out for that name. With the changing Minnesota offense, if that game turns into a shootout, they're going to use Osborne as a third receiver a lot. Great tournament option.
I like that. So the pricing is kind of odd. I wouldn't say it falls off a cliff, but you're getting a few guys way up top, like Davante Adams and Justin Jefferson. But then, the 7th highest price receiver, 6,600. So I guess when you take a look, and I agree with you, I don't love that range at all. But one way I want to approach this or attack this is, where do we see the best stacking opportunities? Because we can tie tight ends into this as well. Where do we see the best stacking opportunities in terms of what will actually work as far as, salary restrictions go? Of course, oftentimes that'll be chalkier if it's, the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no doubt that's not a chalky stack. But are there any that really stand out to you that might not be super popular, but are priced right and make a lot of sense?
Well, you took it away from me because you got players like Juju Smith-Schuster available real cheap. You've got players on the other side of that game, Marquise Brown, and we'll get to Zach Ertz as well, who I think are strong values. Maybe you start pairing up Lamar Jackson with Rashad Bateman right off the bat. Now, I think Jackson Andrews is a fine play. You're not going to have a ton of value there, but Rashad Bateman against a Jets secondary that was 6th worst in the NFL in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, just 5,300. He really sticks out as a low-key stacking option, especially if you're looking for like a single entry tournament option. I think that's really interesting, where you don't need to be the very, very top outcome, the 0.1% outcome. Just a 1% outcome will get you a big payday. I think that could be really, really successful because while I don't see a 35-point outing, a 20 to 25-point outing against the Jets, that's possible.
It's very much possible. The Chargers stack is not going to be cheap. And in doing so, you have to factor in that they have, arguably the best pass catching running back in the league as well. So how much of him do you want in these stacks at 8,200? Keenan Allen being the 5th highest price receiver, followed by Mike Williams as the 7th highest price receiver. No real quality tight end to speak of, unless you're really high on Gerald Everett this year. So that gets a little bit difficult. I think the Raiders is interesting because you're not paying a premium for Derek Carr. You are for Davante Adams, but then you have a very reasonably priced Darren Waller or Hunter Renfrow, and you shouldn't be particularly worried about running backs getting a ton of targets here. I mean, yes, I understand that they have Kenyon Drake, but I don't think he's enough of a factor to really affect my thought process there. So I don't hate that stack at all for the Raiders.
Now, have you heard the news that it's been about 11 or 12 days since Darren Waller practiced, and they're staying kind of quiet about that?
Yeah, I mean, if this continues up, and fortunately it's DFS, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And as far as I know, we don't know what the ailment or the issue is, right?
Yeah, we don't know at this point.
All right.
So yeah, we'll find out some more. By the time you're watching this video, you may have more information than we do. But if Waller is is down for the count, it actually makes a player like Renfro a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like Adams has his target share locked in. Like the defenses will dictate how much of a target share Devontae Adams can get on a week-to-week basis. The Chargers, they added JC Jackson as well. The secondary could be ferocious, but at the same time, we talked about the shootout possibilities. We're going to need wide receivers in that sub 6,000 range if we want the top tier options at running back. Renfro definitely is an option, a solid option for me.
Would you play Foster Moreau if Waller's out?
Tournaments, absolutely. He's going to play a lot, actually.
With DeAndre Hopkins out too, it gives you guys like Zach Ertz. You have Marquise Brown, who's, Hollywood Brown, 6,200. That's not crazy. But then you're looking, you're getting into the weeds a little. You got like AJ Green and Rondell Moore, who, remember week 1, it was like, oh yeah, this guy's averaging 92 yards after the catch. And then he just disappeared entirely. I think he had a negative ADOT for like the first 5 weeks of the season. So
he sticks out to me, Rondell Moore, like specifically for week 1 again against the Chiefs, 4K flat. Not like in that you have to play him range by any stretch, but if you saw that in a winning lineup, that makes all the sense in the world. If you had like a Mahomes and a Juju or a Kelsey or both, and then you ran it back with a cheap Rondell, absolutely.
I agree. And he can make plays after the catch. He just has to get some targets. The problem is he's mostly doing, even in college, everything he did was after. I think it was like 75% of his yards one year were after the catch. So it's kind of crazy. It's like a pinball. All right. Other receivers to talk about, how much are you buying into the Eagles secondary this year? You got Slay. They brought in James Bradbury. Like, do you think they'll be massively improved to the point where, we should be avoiding guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and avoiding this passing attack? Obviously, it's Jared Goff, but you have DJ Shark and St. Brown. And I don't know. This is one of those spots where I think I'd much rather just like play a wait and see here. And I'm not sure I'm really interested.
I'm probably playing no Lions in week 1. Like DeAndre Swift as like a tournament option, like maybe he hits for his ceiling, but I probably will be taking shots the other way around on AJ Brown and just saying like they're going to figure out a way to get him 10 touches. They're just going to do the thing that they should do with AJ Brown on their roster. And, in terms of value plays against a Detroit defense that is kind of suspect in all areas, he's probably top 5 for me at 6,400 on DK.
Top 5?
As a tournament wide receiver option, yeah.
Okay. Any other receivers that get real cheap? Any other guys that could just pop off in week 1 that nobody's talking about, but we might end up seeing them be very effective and they're on your radar? Because remember, minimum salary here is $3K, not $4K like running back.
Okay. If you want to go real cheap.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be $3K, but like definitely.
Kadarius Toney sitting at 4,100.
Yeah, that's really cheap.
That's ridiculous. I like Kadarius Toney at 4,100 more than I like, I don't know, Ayuk at 5,200, but I think Ayuk is a value. It's one of those weeks, right? Week 1 typically this is just a value-filled slate. Toney at 41 is probably my cheapest in that range. MVS at 4,700 as well. I also want to give a shout out to Robert Woods at 5,600, who I think could make some noise. I know you've been on him for much of the offseason, so against the Giants secondary, who I don't think are going to be very good at all this year, makes sense to me. Yeah.
We talked about Sky Moore, 3,800. I don't know what his role. We'll see more about where he's going to be once we get closer to the start of the season. Guys like Alec Pierce, another 2nd round guy. He's been with the first team. I have no idea what to expect of him. The only thing I will say is that their wide receiver core is so depleted outside of Pittman. And then Paris Campbell could be hurt by the time the season starts anyway. So who knows? Maybe there's something there. I'm definitely with you though on Kadarius Toney. I think that just makes too much sense at that price point. Okay. So there is some value. There's some value. Nothing shocking. Right. Nothing to where you're just like, all right, every lineup, this guy needs to be, but I think there's definitely some decent value here at tight end too. I mean, this is one of these positions where it only gets. Last thing I want to say to your Robert Woods point. Robert Woods is the number one there, and so these are always the guys that stand out to me the most. Last year was Brandon Cooks. Everyone was afraid to, you and I talked about it all the time. Everyone was afraid to draft him or play him in DFS at first because, look who's throwing him the ball, or they have no weapons. He's going to get double. It's like, yeah, but he's going to get peppered with targets, 30% target share. You have Treylon Burks. We don't know what he's going to be able to do if he can get separation at the NFL level. Westbrook Akine, Des Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Robert Woods is the, by default, number one receiver there. And they're big favorites against the Giants. So I agree with you. It'll be a low own play. It'll be one that not many people are excited about. And he's not so cheap to the point where he'll be chalk, but I think he makes a lot of sense. So I'm with you. Tight end, Matt. Tight end really sucks this year if you think about it.
In the sense that there's like a few great options, and then it's like it's such an everybody else tier. Like it's gonna hurt. And that's what I got in terms of values. It's barbell, right? The barbell approach. Top options, whatever I want to do it under 4K. You know what I mean? Mark Andrews. I don't think we're gonna see Travis Kelce this cheap ever again, though.
No, Travis Kelce, phenomenal. I love him here. Mark Andrews, no problem with that, but I like Kelce at a discounted price point from him, albeit, marginally. I know you're a big George Kittle guy this year. Kyle Pitts probably going to have a massive target share, but this is a brutal matchup with an amazing amount of uncertainty at quarterback. Like you said, who knows what's going on with Waller? I would much just prefer Waller in stacks instead of just playing him solo. Hawkinson, I'm good. And then, like you said, man, you get down there. God, Goddard, I guess, is fine, but
he's the only one in the mid range that I would take a shot on at that 4 to 5K range. The only one in my top 10. The rest are above 6 or below 4.
Right. I would take shots on Ertz in stacks. I think that's a fine price, and he was actually pretty involved last year. You have no DeAndre Hopkins, but he's dealing with a calf injury. Like Freiermuth with that quarterbacking situation, when really all of his value came in the end zone last year, right? Like all of Freiermuth's value came in the end zone. Gerald Everett. We probably should just spray and pray here. Throw some darts at Gerald Everett. Maybe Hunter Henry scores a touchdown. That's where he was most involved.
Yeah, I can list them for you.
Do you want to look at?
I can literally list them for you. I mean, because we got true options here. I'll take a chance on Cole Kmet, especially if I'm doing like a Trey Lance little run back. Mo Alley Cox, maybe he's the one, the secondary receiver in Indianapolis. No one else. 3,400. Austin Hooper, another one we just talked about. They might have no one else besides Treylon Burks if he's conditioned enough, and Robert Woods. And Hunter Henry even. They got some other options in New England now. If Logan Thomas is healthy against a bad Jacksonville defense that struggles against tight ends, he'll be up there as well. Gosh, it kind of never ends. Gerald Everett is the only value option you could get if you want access to the Charger stack. Like say you want to play Herbert and Everett, something like that. And even Evan Ingram against Washington, who I think will be better defensively this year, at 3,500, he's absolutely on that dart throw list. Hayden Hurst. Yeah, Michael, you mentioned it in the chat. Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's going to be an every snap player.
The thing is, like, if you're not playing Kelce or Mark Andrews, and say neither of them have great games, it's possible that 3 for 25 and a touchdown gets you there at tight end. So it could just be going cheap is the answer. We're up against it. Appreciate Chris Karen for producing as always. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. This is fun. I'm so glad we're back. Hit the thumbs up before you go, and before you actually go, before we finalize this and put a bow on it, Matt, one defense for week 1 that you're starting right now. You have to play them single entry tournament. Who is it going to be?
One defense to rule them all. The Saints are going to crush the Falcons in week 1. The Saints defense is going to just overrun them.
Yeah, they probably will.
3,700, a little bit of a discount compared to like the 4,100 range. We got plenty of value options, but I know we're up against it time-wise. The Colts defense sticks out as well. Man, the Saints are just in a great spot against a Falcons team where I'm not sure if they really have a quarterback one on the roster.
And if you're going all close to the bottom, I bet the Jags at 2,500 will be one of the more popular cheap teams. That Washington offense stunk last year, but of course that's if you're all the way at the bottom. Appreciate you guys. Follow Matt at Draftaholic, me at Loughy_D. We'll catch you back here very shortly. And remember, Loughy and Savoca, we got you every single Friday over on the Fantasy Football Channel. We have a good time. Give you all the best information you need for fantasy football and best ball, and the Odd Shopper channel. Doing big things over there. Everything sports betting, any sport you can think of, we got you covered. And of course, anything DFS related here as well. Peace.
See ya.